Before we get into this episode, there's something that might be of interest that I wanted to tell you about. Scene and Heard, who run this podcast, have been asked by Scotland Food and Drink to undertake a strategic review of the Scotland Food and Drink Excellence Awards. Now, these Excellence Awards have been going for almost 20 years and are a huge mainstay of the food and drink sector. But it's time to ensure that they're still relevant. So if you have ever been involved in the Scotland Food and Drink Excellence Awards, or even if you've ever had an opinion about them, we would love for you, please, to complete our survey. So if you go to the On Farm Twitter, which is at @on_farm UK, and click the link in the bio, there will be a tab in there that will take you to the survey, and it should only take you a very short while to complete, but we would be enormously grateful. Hello and welcome back to On Farm. My name is Anna Davis, and today we are going to be talking about women in agriculture. But before we come on to that conversation, I have dragged Monty out of his office and got him chatting to me today because we are completely and utterly bowled over and humbled and pleased and delighted actually at the level of response to our podcast last week. It was a very hard episode for Monty to record with some really tough content, but we wanted as many people as possible to listen to it, and many hundreds of people have listened to it, so thank you for that. Monty, how are you feeling about the response to last week's episode? And perhaps you could, for those who haven't yet heard it, tell us very briefly what it was about.
Yeah, thanks, Anna. Yes, I'm delighted. So the podcast was a very somber podcast to make, as you say. The first part of it was an interview with a chap called Jamie Brand, and he's the brother of an East Lothian farmer who sadly took his own life earlier this year, Grant Brand. And yeah, the first part of last week's episode was an interview with Jamie. Some powerful messages, basically all about what we need to look out for with our friends, with our family, with others in the farming community, and people in general in terms of mental health, and a big message about keep talking.
What we've seen is that just the amount of support that people have offered, how willing they've been to help us. Had Grant actually known just what was around him, the metaphorical hug of all the friends and neighbours and people that we didn't really know that well, who've just turned up, with a pan of soup, that help and support was always there because people dropped everything to come and help. And so it's just to make sure that people actually understand that the help and support is available. It doesn't need to come to this. There is no problem that is so big that it cannot be sorted.
Yeah, last week's episode was a hard one to make. The subject of suicide and mental health was difficult to cover, but I'm blown away. I'm absolutely blown away with the reaction to the episode. Importantly, we cannot stop at that because the messages in that episode are so important, and I just want more people to listen to it. We often say that. We often say share our episodes and listen to our episodes, and we would say that because we're passionate about this podcast, but that episode in particular deserves to be heard, and there's some important messages in there.
Well, yeah, and it's evidenced, I think, by the fact that so many people have left some really quite powerful comments about the episode and about the bravery of those who took part. And also, we were very humbled as well because people were very pleased with the fact that we'd covered it and the integrity that shows from everybody who took part. And as you say, we're not going to stop there. And I think, men and women deal with these things differently, but it goes without saying, I think, that everybody finds it difficult to talk about, finds mental health difficult to talk about. And we're trying to, collectively with many others across the sector, just trying to do our bit to make it a bit easier to talk about these things. And I suppose that's what leads us into this episode. This episode touches on mental health, but I suppose more from the point of view of trying to build resilience as far as possible amongst people. This next episode is about women in agriculture specifically, and as I say, they maybe deal with things differently, but It's about a programme which is a personal development programme which is enabling or giving the opportunity for more women to open up about some of the struggles that they're facing, which may be practical, but they may actually be mental health related, and give people a safe space to explore these feelings and hopefully come out stronger out of the other side. So a very different approach to talking about mental health this week, but hopefully still very important, because building a bit of resilience can only be a good thing, I think. And I suppose the one thing I would say is we're talking about women in agriculture, but if you are a man in agriculture, please don't stop listening to this. I think in a way it's just as relevant for men to listen to this next 35 minutes as it is for women. So please do listen. It's fascinating and interesting, and what it does is highlight what I think is a massive, massive opportunity for women working within the agricultural sector across the next 2 years. So please do keep listening.
Hi, my name is Morna Ronnie. I am the founder of the People Portfolio. We run some key development programmes, such as Women Returner programmes, where we help women who've had a career break get back into the workplace, and personal development programmes such as the Be Your Best Self programme with the Scottish Government.
Which we are going to come and talk about in quite a lot of detail shortly. So thank you very much, Morna. Kirsty, can I ask you to introduce yourself, please?
Yeah, hi Anna. Hi Morna. My name is Kirsty Ritchie, and I'm one half of Mind and Mission. Louise and I co-founded Mind and Mission 3 years ago now. Our background was mainly in corporate land. I'm a career chartered accountant, and Louise worked in HR for many years, and we both suffered mental health decline at the end of those careers, and decided to retrain in psychotherapy, and that's where we met. And the more we talked, the more we realised that we had a passion for supporting others. So we put our heads together and founded Mind and Mission. And what we do now is we support individuals and organisations to become mentally fit. And that's through consultancy, through coaching and counselling, and through education as well. And we've been working quite closely with the People Portfolio recently on several projects. One, of course, being the Be Your Best Self project alongside the Scottish Government.
Great, thank you both. So yes, that's what we are talking about today, is the Be Your Best Self programme. We're all working on it together. I'm involved in this as well, and a number of others, not just the three of us, but we couldn't have everybody on the podcast today. A number of others. Morna, I wonder if you could just give us a little bit of background to, we know, as you've mentioned, it's a Scottish Government funded programme. Can you tell us a little bit of background as to how the Be Your Best Self programme came to exist in the first place?
Yes, so this was as a result of the Women in Agriculture Task Force report that was published a few years ago, that looked at the role of women in the sector, specifically in Scotland, and it came up with a number of recommendations for how to give women a bigger voice in the sector. And one of those was a personal development programme. And a pilot was run for Be Your Best Self 2019-2020. And our programme now is an extension of that. So we've evolved it, and we're going to be running it for the next 2 years. But it's really as a result of the work of the Women in Agriculture Task Force that it came to be in the first place.
Be Your Best Self is quite a powerful title, actually. What do you think, kind of in slightly overarching terms, the goals are? What are we talking? Where do we want to get to here with the creation and the running of this programme?
That's quite a wide question, actually. I could probably talk all day about that one. When we put our heads together on this one, because the People Portfolio Mind and Mission had done work previously, we really felt that mental health, along with more personal education and more tailored education and development, putting those two together was going to be really important. Very much Be Your Best Self is around helping individuals, the women who are going to be involved in the programme, the participants, to understand themselves to a huge degree. So the first part of the programme is called Realising Yourself. That is primarily around self-awareness. So it's about helping the women to really take back some power, take back some control, help them to understand who they are, what motivates them, and to understand what is it about their lives and what is it about their position at the moment that they perhaps want to change. And it's about giving them the tools and the power to be able to do that. And we do that through various different methods. There's a lot of interaction, a lot of discussion on various different topics. So around self-awareness, around control, there's some cognitive behavioural therapy in there as well. And then the programme moves into the more personal development area, and it takes that, we look at it in sort of circles. So the first circle is the individuals really look at themselves, and then it goes wider and they look at how they interact with the environment, and then they look wider still, and it's how they interact with the outside world.
And you're right. The name of the programme says it all. So it's about enabling women to be their best self. So it's whatever that means for them. So for some women, it might be about taking up leadership roles in the sector and really trying to drive things through by being a part of committees, leadership teams that have historically tended to be very male dominated. For other women, it might be about starting a new business within their farm or small holding or whatever it might be, an idea that they've been germinating for a while but haven't moved forward with. For others, it might be something smaller than that, and it might be just really getting a better understanding of themselves so that they can have a stronger voice in some of the conversations that they're having with their workmates or family members or whoever it might be. So it will be different for everyone that takes part in terms of what their aims are, but for us, the aim is to enable them to do whatever that thing is and to give them some confidence, to help them build their self-esteem, and to give them some tools and techniques. So, by understanding, for example, their strengths a little better, to understand the sorts of barriers and things that might be holding them back, and to share those with other women. I think there's a big piece here about that feeling that you're not alone, and actually understanding that other people feel the same as you, and how the women can support each other as they move forward. So as Kirsty said, the beginning of the programme, where Mind and Mission are heavily involved, is that internally facing piece. Myself and my colleague Helen, we do this at a middle part of the programme, which we call Showing Up. And that's this piece about exploring your fears and doubts and hopes and sharing them with each other, understanding your strengths a little bit better. And then the other member of the consortium, who we haven't mentioned yet, is a lady called Nikki Tierney, who works with a company called Leeway. And she'll do the final part of the programme, and that's where it becomes very externally focused. So this is about understanding the dynamics of group discussions, how you can use the strengths that we've been talking about in those discussions, how to make your interventions as effective as they can be, and how to support and amplify the contributions of others as well, so that you become a bit of an advocate for others. That's the kind of end point of the programme, where we as trainers move away, and then we will look to support the women to carry on interacting with each other going forward.
A word that I see on social media and in print a lot of the time, in the context of every woman, men as well, but we're talking about women here. In the context of every woman, is this word overwhelm. Morna, is that something that's coming across, that actually people feel as though this overwhelm is something that they're experiencing and that they effectively need help to overcome that, and that's just part of the process, but by being able to sort of take better control of that, kind of other things start to fall into place. Is that common, or is that just my observation?
No, that's absolutely present. And so many women that I've been speaking to talk about the juggling or the plate spinning that they're having to do with their involvement in whatever business it might be, many of them having a part-time job at the same time, and then caring responsibilities, whether that's for children, elderly parents. It's the whole sandwich generation thing, on top of everything else. And then you add the pandemic in, and Brexit, of course. And I think there is this feeling that, gosh, I'm feeling quite overwhelmed with it all now. and I know there's more stuff coming over the horizon, you know, that feeling of not having control over what's going to happen next is very difficult to manage. And that's why the piece that Mind and Mission are bringing to this, the mental fitness piece, is so important.
Yeah, Kirsty, I mean, perhaps I chose the wrong word. I don't know. Overwhelm is maybe just a kind of trendy word at the moment. But at the same time, to me, it's pretty descriptive. Are you finding that that's something people are really challenged by? And do you think that the Be Your Best Self is going to help people to overcome that as one of their challenges?
Yeah, I mean, overwhelm pretty much describes the last year and a half, doesn't it? It's, you know, I've lost family members the last year and a half. We've been trying to build a business during that time as well. You know, having nothing coming in financially myself during, you know, a really difficult period. And I think everyone can connect with that term. I think there's absolutely no doubt about that. For us, having the psychological support at the start of the programme will help these individuals, these participants, to really think about where they are directing their energy. So when we direct our energy to things that we can't control, we sort of lose that sense of power. That's very much, I think, what's coming through over the last couple of years is there's just so much out there. There's so much that is grabbing our attention and dragging us into a negative place. But when we direct our energy to the things that we can control, which is pretty much this very small circle, and it's all about ourselves. We can only really control what we do and what we say. When we direct our energy there, our focus there, we give ourselves a sense of power. And the more we focus there, the more we feel in control, the more our self-esteem and our confidence will improve and build over time. So part of the programme is really focusing on that control aspect and helping everyone to see where they've been putting all their energy and helping them to bring that back and bring it back to the things that they can influence and the things that they can control. You know, it's that term, isn't it? Being able to see the woods for the trees. So it's about really cutting back some of that stuff that you can just do nothing about.
Morna, I'm going to come to you next. Obviously, before we finish this podcast, we're going to tell people the practicalities, how to find out more and how to sign up. But before we do that, that'll be later. We've talked about overwhelm. We've talked about, you know, the juggling, as you mentioned. People are juggling so many balls. Somebody might be listening to this and think, well, this is just one more thing I haven't got time for. Or they might be thinking, I really love the idea of this, but the idea of sharing with people is intimidating. So, you know, the time thing, how can we help people to justify the fact that spending a little bit of time by enrolling in this programme is going to be so worthwhile at the end?
I think that's right. You know, whatever stage we're at in our careers, however old we are, we need to continue to invest in ourselves and take that time to just stop and reflect about what we're doing. And it's a hugely valuable thing to do, whatever stage you're at in your career. And I get that, you know, when you're feeling overwhelmed already, adding something else into the mix just feels like a step too far. But what we've done is we've divided up the programme. So it's the programmes, most of them will be online, so that, you know, there's no travel time or whatever. And we've tried to make it as accessible as possible. And we've divided it up into sort of bite-sized chunks. So there's not sort of whole days that people need to commit to this. So there are a number of sessions. Most of them are between 3 and 3.5 hours in length on Zoom. We've scheduled them within school hours. So, you know, if people do have school-age children, hopefully that's the best time for them too. What I would say, though, is if someone is struggling to meet a programme schedule, still talk to us, because we're looking at running a face-to-face group at some point for people who don't have maybe the broadband connectivity, or if 3 full days out would suit someone better and they'd rather do that face-to-face, you know, we can look at that too. So I would say, you know, whatever your circumstances are, get in touch and we'll see if we can work something out that suits you. The other thing I think I would say is, if someone is worried about, not being able to speak in public, not having the self-esteem and self-confidence to maybe take up leadership positions or whatever it might be. Coming on this course is a bit of a safe space to practice that. I was speaking to a lady yesterday, and again, not to break any confidences, but this was a big thing for her, was to be able to speak up and have her voice heard in business decisions. What she was saying was that being part of the course will let her practice that with the other women, to join in the conversation and get used to doing that. And the more you get used to doing it, the more natural it will become. So, having that supportive group of other women who are in the same place is actually a great safe way to practice what you're going to be doing at the end of the course, if that makes sense.
One of the biggest challenges is that fear can hold us back. Not just about, we're overwhelmed, this is one more thing, but I think at a more fundamental level, the fear of change, the fear of putting themselves out there, the fear of taking a risk can be quite debilitating in a lot of people. And I know I've had that myself. Really just that being able to almost turn around and face that fear. It's the one fundamental aspect that is going to really help people to move forward, is to just take that one step and sign up. Like Morna and the girls and Nikki and myself and Louise, we're all really down to earth. We've had all of our challenges with family, with kids, with jobs. We've struggled, we've laughed, we've, made mistakes. We have all been through what many of the women that are coming onto this programme have been through. We are not, at least I don't think we are intimidating in the slightest. And I think, one conversation with Morna and Helen, and you'll see that we're just really quite down to earth, decent, normal people. And that's what the programme is about. It's about coming together collectively as a group. It's not corporate. It's not this sort of posh programme that you're going to go on and you've got to be a certain way. You're there to be yourself, and you are there to draw out the best in yourself. And, that's the name of the programme, is really helping you to navigate what you've been experiencing, why you've been experiencing it, and doing something about it. And it just takes one phone call or one email. And, from that point on, hopefully you would start to feel better and feel really energised and motivated for the programme.
Yes, I mean, wow, that was brilliantly put, and I think so relevant. And I think, I'm not saying other sectors are not like this, but certainly, my experience is within the agricultural sector. And, I know personally and through work, so many people who would put off doing something like that because they feel as though their needs are secondary to the farm business, their needs are secondary to their husband, their needs are secondary to the children. Often they feel as though their needs are secondary to the blooming animals, and they're just not taking a decision to do something for their own well-being. And, I think one favour that the pandemic might have done us is that people do talk about it a little bit more and say, and I feel as though I can't be the best possible mum unless I'm doing something for myself. If I was uncared for and miserable, I would also be being a rubbish mum. And I'm not a brilliant mum all of the time, but when you put your own well-being a little bit higher than it was, you can do so much more for other people. So actually, it's a virtuous circle in my opinion. And if we neglect ourselves for too long, as I've seen happen to people, you forget who you are, and you forget that you've got your own needs. And you lose your voice. As you said, Morna, this is about allowing people to feel as though their voice is valid, isn't it, really? That's one of the things.
That's right. And it's interesting the way you just put that, Anna, because I think it reminded me about, a programme that we ran earlier this year, which was for women returners going back into the workplace. And similar, that they were juggling family and caring responsibilities and all the rest of it and going back to work. And I remember one of the ladies saying to me, when I go back to work, I'm going to have a lot less time on my hands. But one of the things I'm going to make sure I keep doing and just keep that time for myself is my yoga class. So she used to go to yoga when the children were at school and, you know, she was at home. But she said, no, I'm going to start going to an evening class to do my yoga. And so it means I'm going to have less time with the family, but I know how important that is for me. So it just brought that back to mind for me there. And I think whatever that thing is for you, to find the time and space to do it, and hopefully our programme will be the start of getting them to think about some of that.
Actually, that's really interesting, because I think yoga helped to save my sanity in lockdown. I'd never done it before. I signed up to an online class, and that was my half an hour in the morning before anybody else got up, and it was phenomenal. But I suppose what the other point in there is that we're not always talking about something massive here. You know, we're not talking about, you know, you have to go off to some Caribbean island for a week-long health retreat. You know, sometimes it can be something small, like sitting reading a book, or taking the dogs for a walk and getting fresh air, or doing a yoga class. But sometimes you've just got to put yourself first. And I think even if it's, you know, not intentional, I imagine that Be Your Best Self will give people the confidence to do that and remove some of the guilt that we suffer when we do that.
I think it just comes back to that point that I made at the beginning, that it's about whatever you want to get from the programme, and don't compare yourself to other people. You know, I've spoken to a couple of people who absolutely want to be leaders in this sector, and they're almost there, you know, and I think they've got a huge amount to offer to some of the other people who, I've spoken to a couple of ladies who recently have moved to Scotland from England, and so they've set up small holdings. They don't have a network here. They don't really know anything about what they're doing, but they just wanted a better way of life, and they're loving it, but they want to take it to the next level. So I can already see these links from these very experienced ladies that are joining the programme, the knowledge that they will be able to share with these other ladies that are newer to the sector. I think it's going to be fabulous sharing experience. So, you know, they'll get so much from us as trainers, but they'll get just as much from each other.
Interesting point there, Morna, because I shared information about this programme on a couple of Facebook groups that I'm a member of, and 2 or 3 people, these are UK-wide groups, and 2 or 3 people commented basically saying, God, you guys in Scotland are so lucky that you've got this programme. I wish it was running down south of the border, because we would take part in a flash. So we are lucky, because this is going to have a massive impact upon people's lives without them having to put their own hand in their pocket, because that, you know, that's a reality as well. You know, for many women in all sectors, that, you know, they don't always have access to their own money to be able to spend on personal development, but this is all funded, and the opportunity is massive. So yeah, Morna, can you tell us a little bit about the practicalities? When are these courses running? Are there any spaces? How do people sign up? That kind of thing.
Absolutely. So we're recording right now, and the first cohort is actually starting next week, which is the beginning of, end of September, beginning of October. That course is almost full. We've got a couple of places left, but by the time the podcast goes out, we'll be getting close to cut off for that one. The next programme is going to be running in January 2022, and actually it's almost full. So I think we've got 3 places left. Then we have 2 scheduled. So we're going to fit them in sort of between lambing and the school summer holidays. So we're going to have 2 programmes in kind of April, May, June. So that sort of time period. So those are the places that we're filling now. And then there'll be more again after the school summer holidays, sort of September, October time. But it's a 2-year programme. So even if you might have to wait a little while for a course, do express your interest and we'll make sure we get you scheduled in. In terms of applying, so there's an application form that we would ask you to fill in. You can find that in a couple of different places. So our website, thepeopleportfolio.co.uk, has a tab at the top of it called Be Your Best Self. So you click on that, you'll find all the information and the link to the application form there. Or you can go to the Scottish Government website. This is a bit clunky, so sorry, you'll need a pen if you're going to write this down. It's ruralpayments.org, topics all schemes, women in agriculture. So a little bit difficult to find, but so perhaps the People portfolio is the easier one to go to, but you will find it on the Scottish Government website in the rural payments section as well.
Great, thank you, Mona. And I would say, actually, there are a few spaces left on the very first one. Don't be put off by the fact that that's soon, because sometimes I think if you take the bull by the horns, just do something. As you've said, nobody has to get in a car and drive anything. It's all anywhere. It's all online. So if you think you can squeeze that in October, just do it. Why not just do it now? And you're not going to regret it. Kirsty, we always like to be helpful to people listening to this podcast. There might be people out there who, for whatever reason, can't apply for Be Your Best Self. They can't sign up, but they might just be feeling a bit overwhelmed, as we've talked about. They might be feeling as though they're at the bottom of the pile in terms of sort of priorities within their rural environment. Have you got any kind of tips and advice that you can give those people listening as to just how they can take back a bit more control?
I mean, the first thing that we ever teach, really, and the first thing that Louise and I were taught when we did our psychotherapy is about self-awareness. It really is number one. Louise and I have written probably over 100,000 words of self-reflection over the period that we did our training. It kind of begs the question, how can we effectively interact with the outside world or with others if we don't fully understand ourselves? So, when we are self-aware, we understand our strengths, we understand our challenges, we know them inside and out, we know what drives us, and we know what helps us to thrive. And we also understand that how we see ourselves may be different from how others see us as well. So something I would say is to definitely develop and work on your self-awareness. I would say most of all, really think about your strengths, because it's not something that we tend to do. I did a session yesterday actually, and the exercise went exactly how I thought it would go. I had 12 people in a room and not one of them could think of a strength when I asked them, but every single one of them could list their challenges or list their weaknesses or their negative points. It's just not something that we tend to do. We tend to go for the negative. But when you understand yourself better, when you understand your strengths and how you can use those strengths to develop your weaker areas, it's much easier to build self-esteem. It's easier to grow your confidence as well. So, self-awareness, it gives us a way to look at not just our challenges, but also, everything that we're good at. That's what I would say, definitely, is work on self-awareness.
I like that. It's about reframing, isn't it? And you're so right. It's always about, I can't do this and I'm no good at that. And, I've got this flaw. But sometimes just by even just jotting down some of your strengths, you realise that there's more positivity in there than perhaps you give yourself credit for.
Just to reiterate what you said there about you're confident that the women will get what they want from the programme. I mentioned earlier that there was a pilot run, and the feedback from that was phenomenal. We didn't run that; another organisation ran it, but the evidence is there that this sort of programme does have the impact, and we're keen that it's sustainable, that it's not a course that you go on and think, that was great, and then go back to normal, but that it's sustained by the women then working together in, we use the term communities of practice, but to keep the learning and to keep the support going at the end of the course is hugely important too. So I guess I just wanted to mention that as a kind of key takeaway.
Yes, this is not just for Christmas, this is for life, and you want people who go through the programme to stay in touch and support each other long term, and so we're going to work hard to try and make sure that happens too. Yeah. Kirsty, have you got any sort of final messages or anything that you think we haven't covered?
For me, this is a huge privilege, to be quite honest, to have this opportunity to support so many women over an extended period of time. It's not just a small one-off piece of work. It's we will evolve this programme over time and learn from it and really refine what we do as well. I suppose it was a little bit of a personal reflection there when when Morna was talking, in that I know when I had quite serious mental health decline, and then I did my training, and I really felt that I wish I'd known then what I know now. That's what Louise and I put into all our education and all our training, is to give individuals the tools, the knowledge, the understanding to be able to take responsibility and to help themselves. And that's what this programme is about for me. It's about making women feel powerful instead of powerless, and really helping them to help themselves, which is, it's really quite fundamental for us. And that's the privilege for us, is to be able to be a part of that.
So yeah, just to reiterate there, my thanks to Kirsty and Morna. They are just two of the delivery team for the Be Your Best Self programme. So there are other individuals involved who deserve thanks as well, although I won't name them individually today, but they know who they are. So thank you to everybody. That's really interesting. If you're swithering, just get in touch anyway. If you're swithering about applying, just get in touch anyway, because you can have your questions answered and see if it's right for you. But I hope that it is, and I hope that those participants find it as useful as I think they will. Over the next couple of weeks, at some point, we've got another episode focusing on women in agriculture, slightly more broadly speaking, in terms of the challenges faced and how to level the playing field, as it were, and obviously Be Your Best Self is one of those things. And then it's become customary in our new series to recommend another podcast. It's all about spreading the love. And so today it seemed fitting for me to recommend another podcast that's produced about and by women in agriculture. So today's recommendation actually comes from the United States, but it's called the Female Farmer Project, and the best way to find it in the first instance and see a link to listen is on Twitter. So it's at Female Farmers. That's at Female Farmers, and they do cover a whole range of different topics, from soil to mental health and kind of everything in between. So that's our recommendation. I hope you're listening, guys, at the Female Farmer Project. I've enjoyed listening to a couple of your episodes, and keep up the good work. So that's it for today. As usual, we'll be back again next week. And thank you for listening. Please do spread the word.